Do you want ideas for using your Christmas pattern paper to make cards without making scraps? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have a one-sheet wonder that makes a 5x7 card, well actually two 5x7 cards from one piece of 6x8 paper. So I'm going to use my scrapbook.com Christmas patterned collection as my pattern paper, and then I will also be doing some die cutting for the embellishments and using my Christmas cardstock for that. But I like the idea of using up some of that pattern paper that you have in your stash, but not making any scraps with it, because that's something I did a lot in the past. Make a bunch of cards, have a bunch of scraps. Not going to do that this year with Christmas as much as possible, really at any time of year as much as possible. So I'm going to take one sheet of this paper and I have to cut it up into these strips that go long down the 5x7 card, and then one little smaller rectangle. This can be directional pattern paper. This works whether your paper has a clear top and bottom or that you can turn it in any way. I prefer patterns that work with directional, or templates that work with directional paper, because then you're less limited, and there's a lot of great directional papers in the scrapbook.com collections. So to follow this sketch, which you can get at jesscrafts.com, you're going to start by cutting your 6x8 inch paper to 3x8 inches. Then you're going to need to cut off this smaller bit that will be kind of where you could put your focal point or your sentiment, and that is going to be 3 inches by 1.5. So I'm going to bring this to 1.5. You could also cut it from the long end, so start at 8 and move 1.5 down. Either way that makes you more comfortable. I actually kind of prefer when you only cut a smaller portion off. And then I need to cut these down into 1-inch strips. This is actually really quick and easy to make the basic outline or the basic sketch. But then I'm going to take some more time with my die cutting. That's what's kind of nice about being able to have these quick templates, is you can, cut up your paper really quickly, know how to lay it out, and then take your time to do whatever it is that you find fun about card making. Like maybe you really like to color adorable little critters. So now you can take your time and color those, but then know that you have this quick and easy card to put them on. Or maybe, like in this case, you like to work with these really intricate dies that take a little bit more time to assemble, and now you can, because the card design is really fast and simple. So if you look at the front of this die set, it looks like there's 2 snowmen, but in actuality there's a couple of different snowmen in different positions for you to choose from. So just take a close look when you're purchasing a die set to really see the complete value that you might be getting, because it's not just those 2 snowmen. It's actually, I think there's 5 different snowmen. And then there is the outline that lines up with each of them so that you can have their buttons, because when you cut them out, there's going to be all these holes for their buttons and eyes, and maybe you want to be cutting that out of like black paper and layering this on top. But this one die works with all 3 of the snowmen in each direction they're facing. So that is pretty cool, a lot of value there. The arms, you can cut out quite a few at one time, which is super helpful, because if you had to cut out individual arm dies every time, that could really take a long time. And I do appreciate that Sizzix, if you don't know this about them, they label their die with the number that the product is, so that you can match them up easily in case you ever see, this die floating around your craft room and you can't remember what that possibly could be. It's right there. And then you can actually, these are like the Christmas bulbs, again, all kind of laid out together so that you can cut a bunch at one time. So I'm going to pick out some cardstock that I want to cut the different elements out with, and I'm going to try to make my life a lot easier by using double-sided adhesive sheets from scrapbook.com, so that when I cut them out, they are going to have adhesive already on the back. Now, there is no white cardstock in this collection. I think I might pull in some white just like I did for my card base, but I'll use the black cardstock for the background so that their coal shows through. I'm not going to use the Christmas tree. I'm just going to use some snowmen. There's this sign that you cut out, and then actually they line up perfectly, so you can cut these together. You don't have to use the winter wishes through it, but you can. And I would recommend taping these together to save some time. So I'll come back with some different pieces. I don't want to bore you with like every little decision I make with die cutting, but just wanted to kind of briefly point out some of the value and smart thinking that was involved in designing this set. When working with Tim Holtz dies, it's like the perfect time to grunge it up a bit, and I wanted to take a beat and say thank you to scrapbook.com for sending me these products to work with from the Tim Holtz and Sizzix release. And I wanted to show you this cool way they kind of combo together. So there was the Winter Wishes sign, and you know, it would of course look cool if it had this wood background. Well, in the release, there's also this 3D embossing folder, wood grain design, and it's a little bit different than the ones I've seen, but just the amount of texture it gives, it almost looks like it's made of chipboard, or like it just really elevates it. It's definitely a little bit more than your standard embossing, so I thought that was pretty cool. When you cut out the background, then you layer the other piece on top. It's a little hard to see with that black background, so I'll pull him up. And now, instead of having to fill in all those little spots so they look like coal by having this one background piece, that's kind of instantly done. I'm gonna pull my mats from the Christmas smooth cardstock pack from scrapbook.com because I know it will coordinate well, even though it's probably gonna mean that there's gonna be some scraps, but that's okay because then I can use those scraps to cut out the little elements for the snowmen and other dies that I'm gonna use. So I think I want something that's going to make these really stand out. I don't want to pick something that's like really close to them, like such as the black or the dark green color here. I instead want to go something that's like quite different, probably this like pinkish red color here. Cut my mats according to the measurements here on the sketch. So I need 6 3/4 as the length, and then 1 1/4 for the width. So I'm going to try to cut as many of these as I can out of this single piece, and I'll measure from this end. So I went 1 1/4 and 1 1/4, and I'll keep doing it that way so that I get the nicest cuts possible. It's a little bit easier than trying to get that 1 1/4 measurement on this side. Now I do the easiest part of the whole card, where I just put all of the pieces together according to the sketch. I mean, cutting it out is certainly pretty easy too because it tells you all the measurements, but I need to think when I am die cutting, or sorry, I need to think when I'm doing anything, but I need to focus more when I'm trying to do exact measurements. I'm using this grid mat here to help me line things up in the center. So I guess that's a little bit of a challenge, but my grid mat makes it easy. Again, I have a 5x7 card. You can get these pre-made. I'm a big fan of making my own A2 size cards, but with 5x7, it's not very efficient to make your own. So I do tend to just buy them. And then I have a matching envelope as well, which is perfect when you're making Christmas cards. I just eyeball my borders. I've measured them to be 1/4 inch bigger, and I trust that as I place them down, they look pretty good. There are tools out there that will help you to cut your borders more exactly. We Are Memory Keepers has a tool that does that, but I cannot be bothered to spend that much time just to line things up correctly. Use some scrapbook.com tape roller there That's certainly, you could spread these out a bit more if you want. I have them pretty close together in the sketch, but if you don't like as much white space on the sides, always feel free to adjust the sketch to how you like it. You could also make this a horizontal card by just taking this piece, this is the same size piece, and like say putting it here instead. So this doesn't have to be a vertical card. You can also just leave it as is there, but you know, always feel free to move the pieces around to make the sketch work for you. The important thing is how you cut and leave no scraps so that you can really get the most out of your pattern paper. So I actually didn't put adhesive on the back of these black pieces that go behind to make the kohl and show through for the words, because my thought was they might be the part that I want to pop up. And then I want to think about that now before I cut out the arms and all the accessories and everything. I think 5x7 cards are great for this die set because it really gives them a lot of room to shine. You can really make a big scene. Slimline cards would also be excellent, but let me just show you the scale of an A2 size card. So we'll use the back of this one, another card that I made with this release. It fits horizontally across an A2 size card, but it's a little too big vertically, just for some context. My snowmen are coming together, but it's kind of funny how much they don't quite look right without those noses. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I don't have any orange cardstock in the stuff that I'm working with though, so I decided what if I just added a little orange distress ink over some cardstock that was already scrapped on my desk so that I'm not pulling out some other whole sheet or whatever. And we're gonna see how it turns out. It's definitely pretty red, but will it read like orange in the context? And of course, tape on the back here because this I'm going to layer directly on. In terms of keeping it simple, for the arms, even though this snowman is popped up, I actually glued his arms flat to the card, and I think that totally looks fine. So you don't have to drive yourself nuts. You can add that dimension without having to also pop up teeny tiny little arms or teeny tiny little accessories sometimes. I think the noses turned out orange enough in context, although they're certainly a little bit red. However, my card is complete and I have enough materials to make another card, and there'll be no pattern paper scraps, and I've, found all kinds of uses for the other scraps that I may have made in the process. But if you enjoyed this video, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial. And product links will be in the video description. Thanks so much. See you next time.